Right now, somewhere in the world, a person is drinking water that came out of a tap and cost them less than 1 cent. Right now, somewhere else, a person is drinking water from a crystal bottle wrapped in 24-karat gold, and it cost them $80,000 for a single liter. And somewhere else entirely, a person just walked 2 hours, paid a stranger nearly a quarter of their daily income, and carried home barely enough water to cook dinner. Same molecule, three completely different realities. This is the price tag. One object, every extreme. Let's find out what water actually costs and what you're really paying for when you buy it. Let's start where most of us live without even thinking about it. In Egypt, a bottle of water costs about 14 cents. In Tunisia, 20. In Iran and Bangladesh, under 25. But none of that is the real floor. The real floor is your kitchen tap, municipal water, delivered, treated, and tested for a fraction of a cent per liter. In most developed countries, you could fill an Olympic swimming pool from your garden hose for less than the cost of a single bottle of the water inside it. Here's the part that should genuinely bother the bottled water industry. In blind taste tests conducted repeatedly over decades, tap water has beaten or tied premium bottled water often enough that taste alone cannot explain the price gap. Chemically, in most cities, the water in a $5 bottle and the water in your sink are close enough that a lab would struggle to tell them apart. So if it's not the water, what is the floor actually built from? Mostly infrastructure, reservoirs, treatment plants, thousands of miles of underground pipe, and decades of public investment that most of us never see and almost never think about until it breaks. Here's the twist almost nobody puts in a video about water pricing. The cheapest water on paper is often the most expensive water in practice, and it's the poorest people on earth paying the real premium. In parts of Nairobi's informal settlements, residents without piped water access buy from private vendors and kiosks, sometimes paying several times more per liter than a wealthy resident on the city's piped network pays for the exact same volume. Across many low-income regions worldwide, families without direct water access can spend somewhere between 10 and 20% of their household income just securing enough water for drinking, cooking, and washing, compared to a fraction of 1% for a typical household in a wealthy country with piped infrastructure. This is the real price tag nobody puts on a bottle. Distance and access, not scarcity of the resource itself, is what actually drives the highest effective price for water on Earth. The person paying the most per liter globally is very rarely the celebrity buying the gold bottle. It's the person with no pipe running to their home at all. Now let's go to the opposite extreme, where price has nothing to do with access and everything to do with theater. At the top of this market sits a bottle called Acqua di Cristallo Tributo a Modigliani. It's sold at auction for $60,000 for 750 milliliters, roughly $80,000 a liter. Inside, spring water blended from France, Fiji, and Icelandic glacier melt. But the water isn't what you're paying for. The bottle is crafted from 24-karat gold, and 5 grams of actual gold dust floats inside every bottle you drink. It's not alone up there. Beverly Hills 90 H2O's Diamond Edition runs $100,000 a bottle. A brand called Aurum 79 has been priced as high as $900,000. Even brands available in something close to regular production, not one-off auction pieces, like Filico jewelry water from Japan, run into the thousands of dollars per liter purely because of jewel-encrusted glass. None of these products are meaningfully better at hydrating a human being than the tap in your kitchen. What you're actually purchasing is scarcity as a costume, a story about rarity and exclusivity wrapped around a substance that biologically does exactly the same job whether it costs a cent or $80,000. Between the invisible poverty premium at the bottom and the gold dust theater at the top, there's an entire ordinary economy most of us actually participate in every day. The global average price for a bottle of water sits around 70 cents, but even that normal price swings hard by geography. In Australia and the Philippines, a bottle runs about $2. In Singapore, Norway, Uruguay, and Puerto Rico, you're paying somewhere between $1.60 and $1.75. Meanwhile, across large parts of Asia and Africa, the average sits closer to half that global figure. Why the swing on an identical product? Local labor and transport costs, bottling infrastructure, import tariffs, and just as much as any of that, culture. In some countries, carrying a bottled water is completely unremarkable. priced like a commodity. In others, it quietly signals that you can afford not to drink from the tap. The same psychological driver, just a much smaller dose of it, that pushes someone toward the gold bottle at the very top of the market. Line up the entire spectrum, from the person paying a fifth of their income for a jerry can, to the tourist paying $2 without thinking, to the collector paying $80,000 for gold flakes, and a pattern falls out of it. At the true bottom of access, you're paying for distance, literally, the cost of not having a pipe. In the middle, where most of the world's consumers actually operate, you're paying for convenience and infrastructure, a modest markup over the true cost of moving clean water into a portable container. At the very top, you're not paying for water at all anymore. You're paying for a story, a narrative about rarity, origin, and exclusivity, delivered in a container engineered to be looked at rather than drunk from. The object never changes. The water is the water at every single price point on this chart. Only the story wrapped around it, and who has the least or the most power to avoid paying for that story, changes from one end of the spectrum to the other. Same molecule, same job in your body, whether you're a Nairobi household spending a fifth of your income to fill a jerry can, or a collector spending $80,000 on gold dust for a party trick. The real gap in this video was never really about water. It's about who has to pay for access and who gets to pay for a story. And once you notice that pattern in something as basic as water, you start seeing it everywhere else too. Next time on the price tag, we're taking apart a completely different everyday object, and this gap might surprise you even more than this one did. Subscribe if you want to see what you're really paying for.